Hey everyone, it's Brandy and welcome back to my channel, Brandy Janae's Bookshelf. As you can tell from the title of the video, today I'm going to be going over all the books that I read in April. Before I even get into talking about any of the books in details, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the stats that I have for this month. So in April, I read a total of 9 books, or I should say I finished a total of 9 books. Over those 9 books, I read 2,370 pages with an average rating of 3.89 stars. I didn't have any DNFs. One of the books that I finished was a reread. 8 of the books I have physical copies for. 1 book was an ebook, and then 3 of the books that I read were audiobooks. Going in rating order, but starting with reread since I don't give those new ratings. The first one that I have to talk about is So For Real by Rebecca Weatherspoon. If you've watched my March wrap up, you will have seen that I had restarted the Sugar Baby series, and I wasn't sure if I was planning on reading this one or not, but I ended up picking up book 3, or the 3rd novella, whatever you want to call it, in the series. And if you don't know anything about this series, it starts off following this girl named Kayla Davis. I think she's like early 20s, and she is kind of in a bad spot because she was laid off from her job. She has spent the last few months looking for a job with no luck, and her roommate slash friend ends up convincing her to sign up for a Sugar Baby website. She doesn't have the best thoughts about it, but she decides to sign up anyway. She ends up meeting a guy, and that Sugar Baby arrangement ends up turning into an actual relationship. Getting into spoilers, this one is actually taking place after Michael and Kayla both got married, and they're trying to, I think we get a little bit of their honeymoon and then their comeback to their normal lives, trying to get things back on track, but they get a little surprised, which I'm not going to get into. I just decided to finish it up because there was a few things that I remembered, but I didn't have all the details on. And I just wanted a refresher since I had read the first 2. It was a okay read. This one was probably my least favorite because of how the characters interacted with each other. The whole thing was just very strange compared to how they were in the first and even the 2nd novella. It just, some things didn't make sense, and I was just like, what? But I read it. I didn't give it a new rating, so I think on Goodreads I have it as 3 stars. Since that was the only thing that I reread for the month, we're now going to talk about my only 3-star for the month, which was Bone Crier's Moon by Catherine Purdy. This one is a YA fantasy that I actually received in an Outcry box, I believe, from 2020. This one is kind of a 3-perspective story following Aless, Bastian, and Sabine. So we start off following Aless, who is, I guess, supposed to be the main character. She's actually set up to be the next matriarch of the Bone Criers. And Bone Criers in the story are these women who are destined to ferry the dead to whatever afterworld they're supposed to be in. In order to be able to do this job, they have to have a sacrifice, and the sacrifice is killing their one true love. And Aless is coming up, I think she's about to turn 16, or she just turned 16 or something like that, and it's her time to complete her rite of passage. However, when she's going to do that, she comes across this guy and 2 others who kind of interrupts her ceremony and pretty much takes her hostage in order to be able to not only kill her but the rest of the Bone Criers, so that they aren't able to kill or sacrifice anyone else anymore. And then we're following Bastian, who actually watched his father get killed by one of the Bone Criers, and he has decided that he's going to get revenge by killing any Bone Crier that he can find. And then the last perspective that we're following is Sabine, who is Alessa's best friend. She doesn't really have the stomach to be a Bone Crier. Something that I forgot to mention is that they kill animals slash sacrifice animals in order to get their bones, and through those bones from the animals that they killed, they gain certain strengths, which is why they're very strategic in how they go about doing that. Sabine doesn't really have the heart for killing any animals, so she's doing everything that she can to avoid having to complete her rite of passage. But then once Alessa is kidnapped, she decides that she needs to do everything possible in order to help get her back. Honestly, I feel like I very shortly touched on everything that's going on in the story. It's kind of a lot. I feel like anytime you have three perspectives, it's always going to be a lot because everyone is at different points. Everyone has their own motives, and trying to get that all to mesh together sometimes is just a lot. I ended up not enjoying it as much as I hope to. I think that this was very drawn out when it didn't need to be. Honestly, we probably could have cut a couple perspectives or just mashed them into one, especially with Alessa and Bastian, because by the end of this book, it didn't even seem like they were the main characters. Like, it's like we were supposed to be following their stories. They were just there to get Sabine where she needed to be. I don't know if that was the author's intention, but I didn't care about Alessa or Bastian. I thought they were both pretty stupid, and I just did not care about their stories. I know that's probably really harsh to say, but it's just like they didn't want to like learn and grow from anything that they learned. They were pretty set in their ways, and I was just like, I don't know, I was just bored with them. I know that there is a sequel, which I believe is also the finale, but I read a couple reviews and people were just like, those two characters are worse than they were in here. And then there's this weird love triangle, and I was just like, you know what? I don't think I want to do that to myself. I honestly don't see myself ever rereading it. It wasn't terrible. I gave it 3 stars. It had a lot of good aspects, but I felt like the points that I wanted to read more about, they weren't the main focus of the story. And I just, you know, it's not that important to me. So that happens. It got 3 stars. Not a bad book, but just not the one for me. The next thing that I finished was Skip Beat Volume 45 by Yoshiki Nakamura. If you've never, ever heard me or anyone else talking about the series, this starts off following this girl named Kyoko Mogami, and she actually decides to move from a small town to Tokyo with her childhood best friend so that he can pursue his music career. But after she finds out that he's basically just using her, she decides that she's going to get her revenge, and eventually in doing so she gets into acting. And the series has gone such a long way from just the very start of it, and now we're starting to get into a possible romantic relationship with this very slow burn romance that has been hinted at like since pretty early on in the series. We finally get like a little hint that it's going to be going somewhere, or like some acknowledgement on both parties of romantic feelings to each other. And it's frustrating because I'm just like, we're only getting 1 volume of this in English a year, and I want more, and it's not coming to me fast enough. And I'm just like, why are you doing this to me? This one got 4 stars for me. I forgot to mention I'm in my 4-star section, but yeah, this one got 4 stars. I enjoyed the series. I'm ready for the next one already, even though I have to wait until sometime next year, which sucks. All right, next one is another manga, and that one is Cutie and the Beast Volume 2 by Yuhi Ozumi. This one is following this girl named Momoka, and she actually has a crush on this wrestler named Kuga. And the two of them ended up starting to interact with each other online, and eventually they meet in person, and she lets him know that she's interested in dating. However, there's like, I think, almost or maybe even slightly more than a 10-year age gap between the two of them. But Momoka is 18. She's just still in high school. And this one is basically following their relationship after her parents find out about them, because they see them outside together. And it's about Kuga trying to convince her father that they're a good match, and trying to get his blessing for them to be together and probably most likely eventually marry each other. I just thought this one was really cute. I love this. If you're scared of reading age gap romances, but you're looking for a wholesome, like really cutesy love story, check this one out. This is really cute. I don't think anything inappropriate or anything like that is going to happen in here because of what it's categorized as, but I ended up giving this one 4 stars as well. So moving on, another manga, another shoujo. The next one that I read was After the Rain Volume 1 by Jun Mayuzuki. And this one is a omnibus edition, so there's actually the first 2 volumes in this one, and each of the volumes that I'm going to be reading from this point on. But this one is following this character named Akira Tachibana. She was actually on her school's track team, but after an injury, she ends up having to quit the team because she can no longer, you know, keep pace with the rest of the girls. In her spare time, she's now working part-time at this family restaurant, and she ends up falling for her 45-year-old boss or manager to the restaurant. Nothing has happened. She has confessed her feelings for him, and I think he takes her out on a date because he doesn't want to like crush her feelings or anything. So that could be a bit questionable, but at the same time, I was just like, at this point, at least nothing really romantic has happened. There was one thing that happened in here that I don't really like. There was a guy who also works at that same restaurant, and I think he found out about Tachibana's feelings, so he blackmails her into going out with him. And of course, I didn't really like that because I was just like, what was your whole purpose behind this? His whole character was really skeezy to me. As far as the actual story and the main parts of it, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It was just something about the art style and the way that the story was told that made it very quick to get through. I know that it's manga, but not all mangas are like, you know, easy reading. I'm going to continue with the series. I do now own the rest of the series, so we'll see how I feel by the end of it. The next book that I have to talk about is The Boyfriend Project by Farah Rokan. And this one is, I think this is like an adult contemporary novel with a hint of romance in there. I don't think I would classify this specifically as a romance. But this one is a dual perspective story following Samaya Brooks and Daniel Collins. So Samaya at the beginning of the story ends up going viral after her and 2 other ladies call out this guy for catfishing all of them. Her and those 2 other ladies end up getting together, and they decide that have like this no boyfriend pact until they get themselves together. She's starting to almost immediately doubt that when she meets the new guy who's just started at her job, which is Daniel Collins. We find out very quickly that Daniel is actually an undercover agent, and he's actually there to uncover this money laundering scheme that's running through Samaya's company. I did really enjoy this one as well. I like their connection. Of course, I didn't like the lying to Samaya and how everything worked out. I felt like a lot of solutions could have been solved easily if he had just did one thing differently, especially because he even brought it up, but he's like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that the author has like a companion coming out to this book sometime this year, so I will be checking that one out. But as far as this one, like I said, I did really enjoy this. I wish we had got a little bit more of other moments. I think a lot of time that we spend with these 2 characters is spent with them working, and it's not always what I like to read about. I enjoyed this, 4 stars, and it really makes me want to check out more of her work. I'm not sure if she has other books out, but if she does, I'm gonna have to go check those out. So the next 2 books that I have to talk about, I'm actually not really gonna get into too many details because I actually just finished filming a video going into details about both of these, and I am planning on posting that video before this one goes up. So I have Jujutsu Kaisen Volume 0 by Kiki Akutami, and then The Legend of Dororo and Hyakimaru Volume 1 by Satoshi Shiki. So like I said, I did just talk about both of these in a separate manga review, like mini review, for the ones that came in the box. So I'm not going to get into details about these again because, you know, you can just go watch those or watch that video if you're interested in them. But I gave both of these 4 stars. I did enjoy both of them, and I am looking forward to reading the series or more in the series from both of these. And then the final book that I have to talk about that I read in April was Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is the 3rd and final book in the Brown Sisters series. I'm pretty sure there aren't going to be any more, but this one is following the youngest sister, Eve Brown. She has been kind of going back and forth or flip-flopping between a lot of different jobs, and it seems like anytime it gets hard, she just quits and moves on to the next one. And at the beginning of the story, she does that again, and her parents give her an ultimatum. She's completely cut off from her trust fund, and she has to hold down a job for at least a year before they will consider letting her have access to that trust fund again. After her parents give her that ultimatum, Eve storms off, and she ends up in this town, and she ends up coming across a job posting for a chef for a bed and breakfast in this little small town, and she decides to go apply randomly. And she doesn't get it, but because of some things that end up happening after that, she ends up being selected, chosen, I don't know, kind of forced into the role of being the chef slash helping run the bed and breakfast until the owner is better, after she ends up hitting him with her car. Why I didn't just refer to my notes because I have it summed up a lot better than I just did, I have no idea. But anyway, I thought the story was so cute, and it's just like it seemed so real. That's one thing I felt like I really enjoy about Talia Hibbert's writing. I feel like all of her books follow characters that I feel like I could just walk down the street and meet, you know, or just like come across in my everyday life. And it's something about having that even in a fiction story that I just really love, because it just makes it seem like all of this could actually happen despite the random possibility of, you know, these exact situations happening. It's just a lot that went into this that I loved. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I gave this one 5 stars. I loved it, and favorite book of this month, obviously. Those are all the books that I finished in April. Let me know down in the comments what are some of the books that you finished, and if you've read any of these, let me know what you thought about them. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you would like to see more from me, make sure you subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you again in the next one. Bye.